Today, we bring you two powerful rescue stories. A tiny sea turtle suffocating under barnacles, and Syrena, who spent 92 days fighting her way back to life. Two different journeys. One shared message: never give up. As they walked carefully across the slippery stones, listening to the distant roar of the sea, one of them noticed a small shape motionless between two dark rocks. At first, it looked like a piece of drifting seaweed caught by the tide. But then it moved, just barely, struggling like a flame, trying not to die. They immediately approached. There, lying helplessly on the cold stone, was a tiny baby sea turtle, no larger than a human hand. Its shell glistened with seawater, but the shine wasn't from healthy color. It was from the thick, hard barnacles suffocating its body. The turtle lifted its head weakly, then let it fall, as if every movement cost it more energy than it had. One of the rescuers knelt down slowly, his knees touching the wet rock. He reached out his hand, and the moment his fingers made contact with the shell, he felt it. Rough, unnatural, heavy. It wasn't just covered, it was imprisoned. The barnacles had grown so tightly, so aggressively, that the turtle had been carrying a weight far beyond its small strength. The rescuer took a deep breath. He knew this wasn't a simple case. This was a life hanging on the edge. He called the rest of the team, and together they formed a small circle around the turtle, shielding it from the wind, the splashing waves, and the harsh sun. Their presence alone brought a sense of protection, as if the little creature finally felt that it wasn't alone anymore. Gently, the rescuer lifted the turtle into his hands. Its tiny flippers dangled weakly, as though even the idea of moving was painful. He placed it on a flat rock and immediately began the delicate task. With one hand stabilizing the shell, he used the other to remove the barnacles. Huanacha Chimi, they clung stubbornly, refusing to let go, but he was patient, careful, steady. Every barnacle that came off made a small sound, a faint crack, like breaking a chain. The turtle flinched every now and then, but the rescuer whispered softly, calming it, as if speaking to a frightened child who couldn't understand the words but understood the intention. The waves crashed below, sending cold droplets over their arms, but they didn't stop. The world around them, the sea, the sky, the rocks, all faded. Only the turtle mattered. The process was long, very long. The barnacles were layered on top of each other, creating a hard, suffocating armor that prevented the turtle from swimming, diving, and sometimes even breathing properly. But they continued minute after minute, barnacle after barnacle. And with each one removed, the turtle regained a little more freedom, a little more life. At one point, the rescuer paused and lifted the turtle slightly to examine its shell. For the first time, the natural colors began to reappear. Greens, browns, small patterns, the beauty that had been hidden under months of suffering. They weren't done yet. Another layer, and another... Their hands were trembling from effort, not fear. They were sweating, despite the cool ocean breeze. Salt water and sweat mixed on their skin, but none of it mattered. This was dedication. This was compassion in its purest form. When the final barnacle fell off, rolling onto the rock with a dull thud, the rescuer exhaled deeply, not in relief for himself, but in victory for the turtle. The tiny creature lay there, lighter, freer, breathing more steadily than before. Its eyes slowly opened, and for the first time since they found it, there was no pain in them, only exhaustion and hope. They carried it gently toward the edge of the rock. The ocean waited below, moving, inviting, alive. A small wave touched the turtle's flipper. It reacted, a tiny movement, then another, then a stronger push, as if the sea was calling it home. And with a final, gentle release, they let the turtle slip into the water. It swam slowly at first, then more confidently, then disappeared into the blue. Not as a helpless creature anymore, but as a survivor. They stood in silence, looking at the sea. In that moment, they weren't just rescuers. They were witnesses to life, returning where it almost faded. And for them, saving one turtle is never a small act. The morning was unusually calm along the coastline. The sea whispered softly against the rocks, as if telling old stories the stones had heard 1,000 times before. And the rescue team, as they did every day, walked along the rocky stretch, scanning the water. Not because it was their job, but because they knew the ocean carried many stories. Some beautiful, some painful, and sometimes creatures needed them more than they could imagine. That day, they weren't searching for anything specific, just another routine patrol. But the sea had prepared something different for them, a story unlike any they had lived before. As they moved across the wet rocks, one of them noticed something floating strangely near the surface. Not swimming, not diving, just drifting. At first, they thought it was a piece of wood, then maybe a plastic bag, but as they got closer, the truth hit them hard. It was a turtle, but not a normal turtle. A shadow of a turtle, a fragile body buried under countless layers of barnacles. Her shell was so covered, so deformed by the weight, that she almost looked like a drowning stone rather than a living creature. Her eyes were half closed, her breathing weak, her movements barely visible. But inside that exhaustion, there was still something, a tiny spark of life. One of them leaned down and gently touched her shell. Shock spread through his hand. Her shell felt unnatural, heavy, rough, solid like cement, as if life had been scraped away from her inch by inch. They lifted her from the water with extreme care, carrying her into the boat as if they were holding a life hanging by a thread. And in that moment, they all felt the same thing. This turtle needed them now, more than V. When they arrived at the rescue center, every second turned into a race against time. They placed her on the exam table and began the first crucial checks. Blood tests, x-rays, shell assessment, parasite checks, respiratory evaluation. The results were worse than they expected. Over 200 barnacles covering her shell and body, severe immune system collapse, infections beneath the barnacles, parasites draining her strength, dehydration, weak muscles, difficulty lifting her head to breathe. Every result felt like another blow, another confirmation of how close she was to death, but not one of them considered giving up. From the first minute, they decided together, Syrena would not die today, not while there was still a spark in her eyes asking for one more chance. They began the rescue process immediately, removing barnacles one by one, using precise tools, steady hands, and a fear of causing more harm. It was slow, painful, delicate, but they continued for hours. With each barnacle that fell away, a piece of her life seemed to return. Her shell slowly regained its shape light, natural, alive. And for the first time, she took a deeper breath. After the cleaning, they moved her into a recovery tank, shallow water, so she could breathe without fighting for energy she didn't have. And then began a long journey. Antibiotics, hydration, vitamins, special nutrition, temperature regulation, parasite treatment, round-the-clock monitoring. The first week was the hardest. She barely moved, barely breathed, barely stayed awake. Every morning, the team walked in with heavy hearts, fearing they would find the tank still and silent. But every time, she blinked. One tiny blink was enough to fill them with hope. As weeks passed, something extraordinary began to happen. In week 2, she lifted her head without collapsing. In week 3, she paddled her flippers for the first time. In week 4, she tried her first bite of food. The transformation continued. Her eyes grew bright. Her movement became stronger. Her shell regained its color. The wounds healed. The parasites disappeared. Her breathing stabilized. Her swimming became confident. It was a rebirth. Slow, beautiful, miraculous. Saving a life doesn't change the whole world. But for that one life, it changes everything. And Syrena was not just a turtle. She was a lesson. A reminder of resilience. A symbol of hope. Proof that even the smallest creatures can fight the strongest battles.